The night sky above Earth shattered like glass. One moment, stars twinkled over a sleeping world. The next, colossal shadows blotted out the heavens. Thousands of alien warships, each larger than a city, materialized without warning. Their metallic hulls gleamed in the moonlight, reflecting Earth's oceans and cities as if mocking them. From orbit to ground, the silence of disbelief was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's energy fields. In the heart of New York, lights flickered and sirens screamed as citizens spilled into the streets. Cars collided, bridges swayed under panicked traffic, and smoke curled into the sky from minor explosions caused by panic alone. Across the globe, the same scene repeated in Paris, Tokyo, Cape Town. Chaos ignited faster than fire. Governments scrambled to respond, but the alien fleet moved as a single, precise organism, too vast and too coordinated to comprehend. Then the message came. A voice not quite sound, not quite thought, echoed through every device capable of reception. Kneel, or be extinguished. The words reverberated in multiple frequencies in languages humanity could not decipher, yet somehow understood. Kneel, submit, obey. On the edge of the Atlantic, Captain Elias Reeve stood on the deck of an aging military command ship, staring into the abyss. The wind whipped around him, tugging at his jacket as though urging him to flee. Around him, crews scrambled to prepare evacuation pods, but Elias remained still, eyes locked on the shimmering void where alien ships hovered. Fear pressed against him like the ocean itself, but he did not bend. "Sir, we need to go, Lieutenant," Mara Chen shouted, her voice barely audible over the alarms. "The fleet, if we don't leave now—" "I said we wait," Elias interrupted, voice calm but unyielding. "They're not invincible. Every empire has a weakness." Her eyes widened. "Do you even know what you're talking about? They underestimate us. Every one of them," he said, turning to face the young officer. "Humans are unpredictable, and unpredictability terrifies order." From orbit, the alien ships began forming a pattern that made the sky seem alive, a grid of looming giants, glowing veins of plasma tracing intricate designs across their hulls. The Earth's atmosphere trembled under their combined energy fields, and lightning-like arcs of energy danced along the fleet's edges. Millions of eyes across the globe caught glimpses of the display and gasped. The world was not only threatened, it was humiliated. On the ground, ordinary people began to look up. Children clung to parents. Street vendors froze mid-motion, and entire armies felt a collective chill run down their spines. The aliens had not merely arrived. They had made Earth's fear visible. And yet, in that fear, a spark flickered. Elias tapped the controls on the command ship, bringing up holographic projections of the alien fleet. Their formation was perfect, but it was also rigid. Every ship moved as if dictated by a single mind, leaving patterns and predictable gaps. The young officer beside him leaned closer, realizing what he was calculating. "You're thinking of hitting them where they're—" "What? Exposed?" she asked cautiously. "Exactly," Elias said. "They came to conquer. They never came to understand. And they never expected a single human to refuse to kneel." Below, cities still burned from panicked crashes and minor attacks by scouting drones. The first fires of resistance, human ingenuity and courage, had not yet sparked, but Elias knew they were coming. He could feel it in the global heartbeat of Earth, in the nervous murmurs of a world forced to stare down annihilation. One act of defiance could inspire millions. One refusal could ignite a war the Armada had not prepared for. He clenched his fists as he gazed at the alien behemoths, their lights flickering like the eyes of gods. Somewhere in that ocean of metal and energy, the leaders of the Armada were watching, expecting compliance. What they did not know was that humanity's strength was not in firepower alone. It was in spirit. And that spirit, Elias promised himself, would not kneel. The night deepened, and the shadows of the Armada stretched further across continents, turning city streets into rivers of flickering light and terror. Somewhere above, a single human mind was already working, calculating, daring. And in the silence before the first true strike, Earth held its breath. The war had begun, not with fire or weapons, but with the unshakable defiance of one man. The sky above Earth was no longer just dark. It was alive with menace. The Armada's massive ships hovered like predators circling a trembling prey, their energy fields sending ripples across the atmosphere. Cities shivered under their shadow, and satellites burned like shooting stars as the aliens tested their first volleys. Humanity's collective heart pounded with fear. Yet on a battered command ship hovering above the Atlantic, Captain Elias Reeve refused to look away. Around him, crew members scrambled, shouting coordinates, checking systems, and preparing for evacuation. Escape pods were primed, emergency alarms blared, and yet Elias remained upright, unmoving, as if the weight of the Armada itself could not bend him. "Sir, we have multiple incoming drones, plasma torpedoes. If we don't evacuate immediately..." Lieutenant Marachen's voice cracked under tension. Elias's eyes were sharp, scanning holographic displays of the alien fleet. "No," he said, firm. "We wait." They came expecting fear, compliance, obedience. They didn't anticipate human stubbornness. The young officer stared at him, disbelief etched across her face. Stubbornness? Do you even understand what we're facing? Each one of those ships could vaporize entire cities in seconds. "I understand perfectly," Elias replied, a grim smile crossing his face. "And I also understand the one thing. They can't calculate human ingenuity." On the holographic map, the Armada moved as one, each ship perfectly aligned, energy streams pulsing rhythmically along their hulls. Their formation was flawless, rigid, predictable. That was the gap Elias had been waiting for. Humans weren't stronger, weren't faster, weren't as technologically advanced, but humans had imagination. And imagination thrived in chaos. "Here," Elias said, pointing to a section of the fleet where two ships had formed a narrow corridor. A single strike here could create a cascade. One breach could force them to scatter by seconds, minutes enough to turn the tide. Mara hesitated. "You're suggesting an attack? Against the main Armada? You're insane." "Maybe," Elias admitted, leaning over the console, eyes blazing with determination. "But insanity can be contagious. Watch closely." He initiated a sequence, sending a fleet of automated drones, scrapped satellites and human-built craft, modified with improvised energy shields, on a collision course with the alien ships. The drones zipped through orbital debris, weaving in patterns the Armada could not predict. The first drone slammed into a massive ship. The impact was small, almost negligible, but enough. A glowing seam along the ship's hull ruptured, plasma, spewing outward like molten light. The Armada faltered, its formation flickering as it attempted to correct the unexpected anomaly. One small breach had forced hesitation. Below, across the globe, humans stared in awe and terror as the first signs of resistance ignited. Crowds that had frozen in fear now whispered of hope. Somewhere in the chaos of burning cities and panicked streets, a spark of courage began to flicker. The aliens had expected fear. They had not expected defiance. Elias moved quickly, coordinating the drones with precision. Each strike was calculated to exploit gaps, force corrections, and magnify panic. He didn't just attack ships, he attacked their confidence, and it worked. One by one, alien vessels collided, their energy shields flaring violently. Communication lines flickered and failed. The Armada had no protocol for unpredictability. Their hive-like cohesion wavered. The very perfection of their strategy became their weakness. Lieutenant Chen looked at Elias, disbelief giving way to admiration. They're faltering," she whispered. Elias's grin was grim. "And they'll keep faltering as long as we refuse to kneel. Fear may be universal, but courage is contagious." Outside, the sky was a chaotic ballet of sparks, energy, arcs, and debris. Cities trembled under distant plasma storms, but the human spirit was alive. For the first time since the Armada's arrival, it seemed as though victory might be possible, not through overwhelming firepower, but through daring, intelligence, and the refusal to submit. Elias tapped the final sequence into the console. "We've bought ourselves time," he said. "Time to show them that Earth isn't theirs to command. That humans will never kneel." The Armada hovered, colossal and imperious. Yet for the first time, it hesitated. And in that hesitation, humanity found a heartbeat of hope, one human's defiance sparking a resistance that could grow into legend. The first strikes hit with the roar of a planet in agony. Coastal cities along the Pacific lit up in impossible blues and greens, alien plasma tearing through skyscrapers as if they were made of paper. Earth trembled under the Armada's wrath, the atmosphere shivering with shockwaves that sent oceans heaving and mountains trembling. Sirens screamed across continents, and humanity ran blindly, caught between instinctual survival and the incomprehensible terror above. On the deck of the command ship, Captain Elias Reeve refused to look away. Every human instinct screamed to flee, to hide, but his mind was alive, analyzing, calculating, exploiting. The fires below were not just destruction, they were a distraction, an opportunity. "Sir, multiple energy volleys incoming." "Lieutenant," Mara Chen shouted, her voice cracking over the din of alarms. Elias tapped the controls, bringing up a holographic projection of the approaching plasma trails. They arced toward cities and military positions with deadly precision, but not perfectly. Every salvo had a fraction of delay, a tiny error in timing. Humans had milliseconds to exploit them. "Deploy the orbital drones," Elias commanded. Voice calm but urgent. "Through the debris field. Target weak points along the lead vessels. Remember, speed and unpredictability." Outside, the sky was a storm of fire and chaos. The drones leaped into the void, weaving through shattered satellites and falling debris. They moved like living sparks, darting, dodging, colliding with alien energy shields. Each strike wasn't meant to destroy, but to destabilize, to force the Armada to react, to make their perfect formation falter, and falter it did. One massive cruiser, its hull larger than a mountain, wobbled as its shields flared unevenly. Energy arcs danced unpredictably along its surface, and the vessel spun slightly off course. Behind it, a chain reaction began. Ships adjusted to compensate, but in doing so, collided with one another. Plasma cannons flared in confusion. Energy barriers collapsed in spectacular bursts of molten light. Below, humans who had frozen in terror now watched in awe and disbelief. Children clutched parents' hands as skyscrapers trembled, and for the first time, whispers of hope slipped through the panic. The alien perfection was imperfect. Humanity's audacity had created chaos in the machine. Elias leaned over the console, eyes flicking between projections. "Now," he murmured. He triggered the next wave, satellites armed with experimental, magnetic disruptors. The devices tore through enemy shields, knocking systems offline. Ships veered uncontrollably, colliding in a deadly ballet of sparks and fire. The Armada had never encountered unpredictability on this scale. "Sir, they're—" Mara stopped, her eyes wide as the first signs of fear appeared in alien formations. "They're faltering." "Yes," Elias said, a grim smile on his face. "Fear is universal, courage is contagious, let them see it." The city below wasn't just a battlefield, it was a stage. Explosions lit the streets like fireworks. Firestorms reflected off shattered glass, and human survivors began to act. Scientists commandeered communication towers to jam alien signals. Engineers rerouted power grids to create traps. Civilians, armed with whatever they could wield, joined in the chaos. Resistance was no longer theoretical. It was alive, visible, unstoppable. Elias knew they couldn't stop the Armada completely. Too many ships, too much firepower, but slowing them, destabilizing them, buying time, these were victories. Each human action sent ripples through the alien ranks, forcing recalculations and hesitation. The Armada, once a perfect instrument of destruction, now stuttered under the unpredictable mind of its enemy. Outside, the night sky was a war painting. Molten blue plasma streaked across clouds. Metallic ships spun in erratic patterns. Fires below mirrored the chaos above. Yet amidst it all, one human mind orchestrated a counterattack, refusing to kneel, refusing to submit. Elias tapped the console again. Keep pushing. Every ship they lose or fail to control is a message. Humanity refuses to kneel. The fires on the horizon weren't just destruction, they were proof. Proof that courage, ingenuity, and defiance could make even an overwhelming enemy hesitate. And in hesitation, there was hope. The fires of chaos lit up the night across every continent. From the crumbling skyscrapers of New York to the shattered streets of Tokyo, humans were no longer just fleeing, they were fighting. The alien armada, massive and precise, had not anticipated this. They had expected fear, screams, submission. Instead, they found resistance, a spark igniting in the hearts of millions. On the outskirts of London, an abandoned subway tunnel became a command center. Mara Chen ran through corridors dimly lit by emergency lights, holographic schematics flickering on cracked walls. Civilians armed with salvaged weaponry, pipes, rifles, hacked drones, moved with purpose, their fear replaced with determination. Status, shouted one of the volunteers, waving a handheld console. Drones are in position, Mara replied, eyes scanning the feed. We've got interference in their communications. They're recalculating, confused. Above, the alien ships adjusted, their formation. Glowing veins of plasma coursing across hulls like veins of lightning, but each correction created new vulnerabilities. One cruiser, overcompensating, veered too close to another. Sparks flew as hulls grazed each other. Energy shields flared, momentarily disabling weapon systems. Elias Reeve, aboard his command ship, above the Atlantic, watched the display. His mind raced, calculating angles, trajectories, timings. One human mind had already begun the resistance. Now, the world itself was joining in. Every city can be a weapon, Elias muttered, tapping coordinates into the ship's console. Every human a node of disruption. Let's make them regret underestimating us. From underground bunkers to ruined skyscrapers, humans began to strike with improvised brilliance. Engineers rigged streetlights to emit EMP bursts, knocking out enemy drone sensors. Scientists adapted civilian drones to carry miniature explosives, dropping them onto alien hulls in coordinated swarms. Even children, armed with ingenuity and courage, sent small but effective sabotages into the orbiting machines. Outside, the sky was a kaleidoscope of chaos. Alien plasma collided with EMP arcs, creating blinding flashes. Debris rained down, metallic, fragments spinning in zero gravity, some colliding with enemy vessels. The Armada's formation faltered more with each passing minute, their rigid perfection collapsing under the unpredictable ingenuity of humans. Sir, Mara said, her voice tense. They're not just faltering, they're panicking. Some ships are breaking formation entirely. Elias's jaw tightened. Good. Keep pushing. Every hesitation is a victory. Every human act of defiance becomes a ripple that spreads faster than any weapon. In the skies over Cairo, a group of civilians used commandeered transport drones to drop magnetic disruptors onto alien ships. The devices sent energy surging, unpredictably through alien circuits, causing shields to flicker, cannons to misfire. Below, terrified pedestrians watched, then cheered as a ship spiraled out of control, crashing into the desert with a thunderous explosion that shook the sands. Across the globe, humans were improvising on a scale the Armada could not anticipate. Streets became battle zones, rooftops became launch pads, abandoned stations became communication hubs. The aliens' calculated order met human chaos, and chaos began winning. Elias leaned over the holographic display, a fierce determination burning in his eyes. Tell every human on Earth this. We refuse to kneel. Each of you is a weapon, each act of defiance a strike against tyranny. Do not stop. Do not fear. The Armada cannot predict courage. The world held its breath. For the first time, humanity was no longer a victim of circumstance. They were architects of their own destiny. The fires of destruction still raged, but intertwined with them were the sparks of hope, ingenuity, and unbreakable human will. The Alien Armada, once a monolithic force of absolute power, now stumbled under the weight of unpredictability. They had come expecting obedience and terror. Instead, they faced a species that refused to submit, a species willing to fight despite overwhelming odds. And at the heart of it all, Captain Elias Reeve remained unbowed, the embodiment of defiance. One man's courage had become a beacon, a signal to all of humanity. The fight was far from over, and the refusal to kneel was just the beginning. The flagship loomed above the Atlantic like a jagged moon, its hull stretching further than any human imagination could hold. From orbit, it pulsed with alien energy, veins of plasma running along its surface like glowing arteries. Every moment, it lingered. It struck terror into the hearts of those below, and yet to Captain Elias Reeve it was a challenge, a puzzle waiting to be solved. "Sir?" Lieutenant Mara Chen's voice trembled through the comms. "Boarding that thing? It's impossible?" Elias finished for her, a grim smile on his face. "Yes, but nothing worth doing is ever easy." He climbed into a stolen alien shuttle, its metallic surface humming with energy. The craft moved silently through the void, weaving through debris from earlier skirmishes, past destroyed drones and shattered satellites. Stars reflected off its hull like shards of glass, and the distant fires of Earth cities painted the black canvas below in orange and red. Inside the flagship, corridors stretched endlessly, walls pulsing with alien bioluminescence. The ship's hum wasn't just mechanical, it was alive, resonating with an intelligence that Elias could almost feel. Security drones patrolled, their metallic eyes scanning in rhythmic arcs. One wrong move would mean instant death. Elias breathed steadily, recalling everything he knew about the alien technology. Each drone followed predictable patterns. Each corridor had blind spots. Each pulse of light hinted at structural weak points. Humans weren't physically stronger, but humans were clever, and cleverness was now his weapon. He activated a small EMP device, disabling a patrol drone moments before it reached his position. Sparks erupted, smoke curled into the corridor, and he slipped past, moving deeper into the heart of the alien vessel. Every step echoed with tension. One miscalculation, one pulse of alien energy, and it would all be over. At the core, the control nexus towered above him, a cathedral of alien technology, massive crystalline conduits radiating energy like frozen lightning, the heart of the flagship's power. And it was vulnerable. Elias set to work. He planted destabilizing devices along key junctions, each one rigged to overload the ship's energy lattice. If timed correctly, the entire flagship could be crippled from within, causing a cascade of system failures that would ripple through the Armada. As he worked, the flagship shuddered. Alarms blared, a chorus of alien clicks and vibrations filling the massive chamber. Drones swarmed, their movements erratic. He had triggered them, but also manipulated their behavior. With careful timing, he ducked behind conduits, letting the swarm pass without detection. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown to catastrophe. Then he connected the final device and activated the broadcast system. Holographic projectors flickered, projecting a human silhouette across the flagship's command nexus. "Listen carefully," Elias said, voice steady. "We are humans. We do not kneel. We do not submit. You came to conquer, to intimidate, to extinguish life. But life resists. You will leave this planet, or be burned by your own arrogance. The human spirit cannot be broken." The hologram pulsed. The words echoed through every ship in the Armada. Systems hiccuped. Energy shields flickered unpredictably. The alien fleet, vast and imposing, hesitated. They had never received communication like this, never faced such defiance in the heart of their flagship. Outside, Earth's surface seemed to respond. Fires reflected in the oceans like molten veins. Drones and humans alike coordinated attacks with renewed vigor. One man's courage had become a signal, a rallying cry that rippled across the globe. Elias tapped the final sequence. The destabilizers hummed, energy building to a critical point. One wrong calculation could destroy him along with the flagship, but if he succeeded, the Armada would falter irreparably. He exhaled, heart steady despite the terror around him. Humanity had no choice but to act boldly. Submission had never been an option. The first pulse surged. Lights flickered violently, corridors shuddered, and the flagship trembled. Energy conduits overloaded in brilliant arcs of plasma. Systems failed one by one. The great vessel, once a symbol of alien dominance, now became chaos incarnate, its power undermined by a single human mind. And outside, the Armada noticed. Confusion, hesitation, panic. Elias smiled grimly. Courage, ingenuity, and defiance had done what sheer force could not. Moral thread. True bravery lies in confronting impossible odds. One determined individual can turn fear into chaos for the oppressor and ignite hope across a world. The flagship trembled as though the universe itself had willed it to shatter. Energy conduits sparked and arced, the air inside the alien vessel resonating with an unnatural hum. Captain Elias Reeves' destabilizing devices pulsed in perfect synchrony, building toward critical overload. Outside, the alien armada waited, colossal and precise, unaware that the heart of their command had just been breached. Elias pressed his hand against the control panel, feeling vibrations surge through the deck. Every sensor reading screamed danger, yet he moved with calm precision. One final adjustment, one last sequence, and the chain reaction would begin. Below, Earth trembled with anticipation. Humans across the globe watched the skies, bracing for the next wave of destruction, unaware that the war's turning point had already begun. In ruined cities and underground bunkers, eyes flickered to communication screens as energy anomalies appeared in orbit, and then it started. The flagship shuddered violently. Plasma conduits flared in blinding arcs, cascading through the corridors like lightning frozen in crystal. The hum became a roar, shaking the hull to its core. Elias ducked as sparks showered from the ceiling, smoke curling into the chamber like serpents of fire. One by one, systems failed. Shields collapsed, energy weapons sputtered, communication arrays sparked out of control. Outside, the effect was immediate. Alien cruisers nearby faltered, their formations unraveling like threads pulled from a tapestry. Ships collided as automated systems overcompensated, weapons misfired, and engines faltered. A massive destroyer spun out of control, trailing a tail of molten debris as it hurtled past Earth's orbit. Elias's comm crackled. "Status?" he barked. Mara Chen's voice came, strained but exhilarated. "They're breaking. The fleet is scattered. The flagship's cascade is causing chain reactions across multiple vessels." "Good," Elias muttered, a grim smile touching his face. "Now let's finish this." Humans, inspired by the chaos, intensified their counterattack. Orbital drones swarmed into gaps in the Armada's ranks. EMP bursts disabled weapon arrays, and magnetic disruptors sent alien ships spiraling unpredictably. Streets across Earth became launch pads for sabotage. Civilians rigged energy fields, commandeered transport drones, and hacked alien surveillance systems. The Armada's perfection, once terrifying, was crumbling under human ingenuity. In orbit, the flagship's core ignited, a brilliant pillar of unstable energy. Elias activated the final device, amplifying the overload. Plasma arcs danced across. The hull like living fire, metal groaned, and the ship convulsed as if in agony. Every sensor in the nearby fleet registered the anomaly. Hesitation rippled outward. The Armada, massive and terrifying, had never faced unpredictability like this. And then, the explosion. A pulse of energy erupted from the flagship, radiating through space in a shockwave of incandescent fire. Alien vessels spun helplessly, shields collapsed, and debris rained across orbit like a meteor storm. The Armada's cohesion was gone, once perfect formations now scattered into chaos. Energy beams collided with each other in spectacular arcs, and ships collided in a chain reaction of molten metal and plasma fire. On Earth, humans cheered as alien vessels fell like burning stars, the skyline reflecting both destruction and triumph. Cities that had trembled now thrummed with hope. The defiance of one human had sparked a global uprising, turning despair into opportunity. Elias floated amidst the chaos, observing the battlefield through his console. "This is what happens when they underestimate us," he muttered. "Courage cannot be calculated. Ingenuity cannot be predicted. We will not kneel." From the flagship's shattered hull, he watched the remaining alien vessels hesitate. The message was clear. The Armada, mighty and implacable, could be beaten. Humanity had not just survived, they had turned the tide. Smoke and debris floated silently in orbit, punctuated by the occasional flare of an alien vessel losing control. The chaos was beautiful, terrifying, and alive. And at the center of it, all one human mind had orchestrated the destruction of what seemed unstoppable. The skies above Earth were no longer silent witnesses. They had become battlefields. Alien vessels, once an unbroken wall of metal and plasma, now staggered and burned. Smoke from orbiting debris mixed with the aurora of failed energy shields, painting the heavens with fire and light. The Armada's cohesion had shattered. Hesitation rippled through their ranks like a virus. Captain Elias Reeve watched from the command ship, his jaw set, eyes scanning the chaos. "They can't recover," he muttered. "Not from this, not if we strike with everything we've got." On the ground, humanity was rising in a coordinated surge. Cities became launch pads for counterattacks. In Paris, commandeered high-rise towers bristled with improvised weapons and anti-ship cannons. In Sao Paulo, scientists hacked alien drones, turning them into guided missiles aimed at the flanks of the remaining cruisers. Across continents, the same pattern repeated. Humans turning fear into strategy, chaos into opportunity. "Sir," Mara Chen's voice came over comms, tinged with adrenaline. "Orbital drones are engaging the flank ships. They're disoriented. They can't maintain formation." Elias's fingers danced across the console, redirecting the human-controlled drones with precision. "Keep them off balance. Every vessel they lose is momentum we take. Every hesitation. They'll never forgive underestimating humans again." Above the Atlantic, one of the alien cruisers flared violently, plasma arcing across its hull as human drones slipped inside damaged shields. The ship spun uncontrollably, tearing through a nearby destroyer, sparks and molten metal trailing behind like a comet. Each strike was more than tactical. It was symbolic. The Armada, so sure of its dominance, was learning that Earth was not a planet to bend to their will. Across the globe, civilians joined the fight. Engineers in abandoned factories rigged EMP cannons. Teenagers commandeered transport drones as aerial harassers. Even small villages in remote mountains rigged satellite uplinks to disrupt alien communications. The resistance was no longer centralized. It was everywhere, unpredictable, unstoppable. Elias saw it clearly. Humans were no longer just surviving. They were orchestrating the final phase of the rebellion. Every act of courage fed the momentum. Every defiant action became a threat the Armada could not calculate. In orbit, chaos reigned. Alien ships collided in confusion. Shields flared and failed. Weapons misfired into one another. Plasma explosions lit the void like fireworks, debris spinning through space in deadly spirals. And through it all, the humans pressed forward, exploiting every weakness, amplifying every failure. "Send in the final drones," Elias commanded. "Target their command hubs and engines. We finish this now." The assault was swift and devastating. Alien cruisers ignited in massive flares of energy, engines rupturing under precise strikes. Communication hubs went dark, cutting off coordination. The Armada's pride, its perfect strategy, had become its undoing. Ships fled in panic, colliding or burning as human ingenuity dictated the battlefield. On the ground, cheers erupted even amid ruin. Survivors emerged from shelters to witness alien vessels plummeting from orbit, flaming debris falling like shooting stars. Children stared in awe, elders cried, and everywhere the message was the same. Humans refused to kneel. Elias leaned back, surveying the battlefield through his console. The Armada, once a monolithic force of destruction, was retreating. The few surviving vessels limped away, their retreat disorganized, pride shattered. Humanity had not just survived, they had conquered. Not with superior firepower, but with creativity, courage, and the unyielding refusal to submit. "Earth stands," Mara said softly, awe in her voice. We actually did it." Elias allowed himself a rare smile. "We did more than survive. We showed the galaxy that humans cannot be underestimated. That courage, ingenuity, and defiance are weapons as deadly as any fleet." Outside, Earth's skies were scarred but victorious. Smoke mingled with sparks from orbiting debris, flames flickered in cities still smoldering. Yet amidst the destruction, a new dawn emerged, not just of light, but of legend. Humanity had reminded the universe that submission was never an option. The skies over Earth were quiet now, but the silence was not peaceful. Smoke from orbiting debris drifted across continents, streaking the atmosphere with ribbons of gray. Cities were scarred, monuments shattered, and yet, amidst the ruin, humanity stood unbroken. The Alien Armada, once a symbol of unstoppable power, had retreated into the void, humbled and fractured. Captain Elias Reeve floated above the Atlantic on the command ship, eyes scanning the distant horizon. Fires still burned on the surface, reflecting in the rippling ocean below. Satellites hung shattered in orbit, some still glowing from the residual energy of destroyed alien shields. The aftermath was catastrophic, but it was victory. Humanity had endured. Humanity had defied. "Sir?" Mara Chen's voice came over the comms, tinged with awe. "Reports are coming in from every continent. Humans are reclaiming cities, securing survivors, and salvaging alien technology. Entire fleets of drones have been converted into defensive networks. The Armada, they won't be coming back." Elias allowed himself a long breath. "Good," he said, voice steady, calm. "Let them remember who they underestimated. Let them remember what it means to face humans who refuse to kneel." Across the globe, humanity celebrated cautiously. Fires that had been symbols of terror now became beacons of resilience. Survivors emerged from underground shelters and crumbled buildings, embracing one another, shouting, crying. The chaos that had once been panic transformed into triumph. Humanity had faced annihilation and had risen from the ashes. In Paris, children ran across the rubble-strewn streets, chasing each other through shadows of burned buildings. In New York, engineers and civilians worked together to restore communications and secure power grids, their faces streaked with soot and sweat. In rural villages, people shared stories of courage, small acts of defiance that had saved lives, disrupted alien operations, and contributed to the global victory. Elias addressed the world via the restored communication network, holographic, projections reaching every city, every settlement. His image, upright and determined, flickered over screens as humans across the planet listened in rapt attention. "We faced the impossible," he said. "We stared down a force that believed it could command us, crush us, erase us. And yet, here we are. Scarred, yes, but unbroken. Why? Because we refused to kneel, because we refused to surrender our will, our ingenuity, and our spirit. Humanity is not defined by our weapons or our technology, but by our courage to stand, even when everything seems lost." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. The world was listening. Not just Earth, but distant civilizations who had been observing, learning from the battle. Elias continued. "The Armada thought fear could make us bend. They thought perfection could break us, but they underestimated the unpredictable, the relentless, the human heart. Remember this: defiance is stronger than domination, courage more potent than terror. The galaxy may see us now, but they will never forget." On the ground, in the ruins of once great cities, humans began rebuilding. The streets that had been torn by plasma fire were now alive with movement. Teams repairing infrastructure, clearing rubble, and raising flags not of submission, but of triumph. The smoke that hung heavy in the air smelled of both destruction and possibility. In orbit, the remnants of the alien armada retreated, their pride shattered. Their fleets, once pristine instruments of annihilation, now limped through space, haunted by the unpredictable, indomitable species they had sought to dominate. Earth had sent a message. A single act of defiance, executed by one human, had catalyzed a global resistance and reminded the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. Elias turned from the console, watching the sun rise over a battered yet undefeated planet. The world was quiet, but alive. He knew the fight had changed something fundamental, not just on Earth, but in the cosmos. Humanity's spirit had been tested, and it had emerged victorious. One human's refusal to kneel had sparked a legacy that would endure for generations. Moral thread. Courage, ingenuity, and defiance are humanity's greatest weapons. When one refuses to submit, they can inspire millions, change the course of history, and leave a legacy that no force, alien or otherwise, can erase. The sun broke through the clouds, scattering golden light over a planet that had burned, bled, and risen again. And in that light, humanity's legend began, not of domination, but of unbreakable will, of a species that refused to kneel.